Welcome again. This is Bill Jones from Freedom's Nest. Welcome to Freedom's Nest again. Another presentation, mini documentary. I don't know what we're calling them here. Plus a report. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm a war correspondent here in America, reporting reporting on the war, the class warfare going on in the United States, the insurrection, the silent, secret American insurrection and revolutionary movement, and we're reporting on that today. And that's the subject overall for my over 100 videos we got on YouTube on my channel. Yeah, we're up over 100 now. And today's subject is entitled is Communist Insurrection, Battle of Indiana. Yeah, you're hearing about that in the news now. Another battle, another chaos. That's what you have. Chaos, chaos, chaos. And there's like a continuation of battles and individual battles and new battles. And there's a new battle going on, of course. There's a new battle. It's the Battle of Indiana. And their law, that supposedly new law, it's a continuation of a law. I'm here, war correspondent. I'm in the war front in Illinois. We've got some of them religion law, freedom laws. We got other ones. I've gone through them in the past. Bill of Rights, inherent rights that we have. Here's the question, though, in Indiana, the Battle of Indiana and that law has to do with freedom and liberty. And there's a difference. They use those words interchangeably, but there is a difference. I don't know whether it's significant or slight or whatever. What difference does it make? The difference, of course, is that liberty is a choice of to have freedom or not. It's the choice, and that's the important part, and that's what you see in this law. It's about liberty. The choice to have freedom and the clarification of that freedom. And this is the introduction part of this particular video. We're going to continue on. Of course, I do my oath. I always do my oath. And the reason I always do my oath, and I'll explain this again, is and I source everything. Because sooner or later, they're going to come after me. And I'm waiting for them. I'm used to it. I'm a Vietnam veteran. They were coming after us back there. Back in '69, they were coming after me. Watch them Russian trawlers pulling up alongside of us with them funny fishing poles. They never had no lines in the water. No, they were spying, and they tried playing chicken with carriers. That's how bright they are. We were probably 100 times bigger than they were. We looked down at them as they come by. Old World War II carrier, 75 foot off the water, standing up on the flight deck, looking down at them little trawlers coming by. But they were keeping track of us. Visitors from the north, we call them. Now let's go on to the oath, and then we'll get right down into the Battle of Indiana. And the first thing we always do is take care of administrative business. Got to do the business first. And that's the oath. I, William R. Jones, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, so help me God. And as I always say, been keeping that oath since 1965, July 1965, when I joined the Navy. To see the world, and what did I see? The Atlantic, it was frantic. Well, yeah, the enemy then was communism, as it is now. And what I mean by communism is a generic term to me. Those adhering to the Communist Manifesto and the guidelines of the Communist Party in 1921. That's what I mean by communist. They're totalitarians, they're political party supremacy, despotic, You know, the whole thing there. It's a lot easier to just say commie or communist, and that's what I mean by that. And general quarters, all hands man your battle stations, up and forward to starboard, down and aft to port, set material condition zebra throughout the ship. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. Communist insurrection, general quarters, general quarters. And the first thing we're going to do, we get into this battle in Indiana, the communist insurrection, and I'm going to have an overview. Why we have an insurrection, why I call it an insurrection, where it all comes from. If you've heard me before, this is repeating a lot of stuff, and I have to do it because somebody might come along here and never heard my stuff before. Never seen any of my videos before, and there's some basic ones, the overview. I come into this, and it lays it all out because it's all an extension of the basic, the next 3 slides I'm going to show you. And we got this slide up. Now, this is from page 25 of the Communist Manifesto. Yeah. And you've heard me talk about, you know, the immigration thing. It's all right here, by the way. This is what the communists say. Page 25. The communists are further reproached with desiring to abolish countries and nationality. Goodbye, America. Goodbye, American political system. That's what they're doing. They gotta abolish America. They abolish all countries. I'm gonna get into that right now about what they abolish. Now we're on page 26. Abolish countries and nationality. They abolish a lot of stuff. They want to abolish private property. Of course, if you abolish private property, that means you abolish private property rights. You don't have any rights. If you don't have any property, you don't have any rights. You don't need any rights of property if they take all the property away from you and turn it into community property. Then the community, of course, would have rights, right? What a bunch of malarkey. You know, it's the propaganda of the communist. But here we go. We're going to go on page 26 here. You've probably already been reading a little bit here. Undoubtedly, it is said, religious, moral, philosophical, juridical, I have more trouble with that word. Ideas have been modified in the course of historical development, but religion, morality, philosophy, political science, and law constantly survive this change. There are besides eternal truths such as freedom, justice, should have liberty in there, etc., that are common to all states of society, but communism abolishes eternal truth and abolishes all religion, all morality, instead of it constituting them on a new basis. It therefore acts in contradiction to all past historical experience. And when I write now, I say historical experience. This is the historical experience of communism since 1847, 1848. Engels and Marx. This, I'm going to tell you right now what it is. All this stuff you just seen, the modification or the abolishment of eternal truths, all religion, all morality, that abolishment, that's slavery, death, destruction. Communists are destroyers. Anti-communists like myself are builders. We're builders. We build up. That's like my grandfather. I talked about my grandfather coming over here in 1905. He was anti-socialist. He had his own construction company here in the United States, in Chicago, in the teens, in the 20s, into the 30s. He was a builder, anti-socialist, despised FDR. And that's what they do. They want, but look at that. They want, let's see, eternal truths, that's religious, isn't it? Abolishes all religion, and all morality. Where we got it? We have the Judeo-Christian moral code in this country. They abolish it. They abolish religion. Goodbye, God. Goodbye, Jesus Christ. Yeah, they abolish it all. How dare they do that? Who are they to do that? They got a control problem, don't they? They're freaks. They want to control everything. Totalitarian control. That's the historical experience. And this leads you right into the Battle of Indiana, doesn't it? What, if we have a communist totalitarian system, you don't have to worry about religious freedom. You don't have any religion. They just abolished it. Yeah, they abolished it. They abolished eternal truth, grace and salvation, mercy. Glory be to God. Whoa, that's gone, isn't it? They just abolished it. You know, there's political science in there, and I tell people, friends of mine in the church and what have you, and yeah, to me, the Holy Bible is political science from cover to cover, and I get the strangest looks from people on that. And this is part of what where I got that from. How I got where I got. I'm gonna have that in my book, and I'm gonna be doing a book, and I'm gonna also be doing probably somewhere along the line there a documentary, independent documentary, and I'll probably have it how I got to where I am. But there's a political science, philosophy, the law. Bill O'Reilly, he says, killing Jesus, that philosophy. And that's probably true. Philosophy is part of political science too. And law, of course, that's part of the political science. It's all there together. It's all in the Holy Bible, isn't it? 10 Commandments, that's the basis of our political system. Oh, wait a minute. The communists just abolished that, didn't they? They abolished the law system because they abolished the Judeo-Christian moral code. They got rid of all morality. Yeah, that's what's the Battle of Indiana and everything else and all the chaos is about. Right what's on this page, and I'm gonna go to the next page. If I can get down here and go to it. Oh, page 34. We got page 34. Got page 34. I want you to listen to this very, very closely. You could read it probably as you go along here. But read this very closely. You notice labor, that's the European spelling because that's where this stuff comes from. The blacks, the communists of color, Afrocentrism, they believe it comes from Africa. But I can tell you right now, Engels and Marx were not African. They came from Germany. In fact, I was just reading this morning and doing a little research there that Marx hadn't realized. I know he died in London in 1884, and I wonder how he got there. I found out how he got there because he got thrown out of Germany over to Paris, and then the French threw him out of France, France, and he went over to London. London kept him. The English kept him. My old countrymen. What are they doing there? Finally, they labor everywhere for the union and agreement of democratic parties of all countries. Notice this something right away. Democratic parties and union. Yeah, democratic parties and union. Finally, they labor everywhere. It's for the union. They don't labor for themselves. They labor for the union and the parties, the democratic parties. I'll be getting into that somewhere along the line. I have in the past about democratic parties, where that's from. That's from the communist religion, the Communist Manifesto, the Communist Confession of Faith. That's right, communism is a religion. And that has to do a lot with the Battle of Indiana, doesn't it? We'll be getting into that here in a second. But the next paragraph, this is significant. The communists disdain and conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions, that the ruling classes tremble at the communist revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their change. They have a world to win. Working men of all countries unite. In some places in the manifesto, in some of the letters that they have and what have you, it will not say working men of all countries unite. It will say proletarians of all countries unite. Proletarians, it's the working man and the lower class. And by the way, it's all propaganda and garbage. Because the only people that the Democratic parties want to help is the leadership of the parties and their special interest, who they skim the profits off of and have monopolies and things of that sort, all their buds. You see what's happening in Russia and Soviet Union and China. I talked about China. 10 in the top 12 of the richest men in the world in China, billionaires, are party leaders. The other two are their special interest that they all work together, you know. It's collaboration. Now, you know this is a forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. This is 1848. This is written. They, in effect, are declaring war on Western society, the entire world, world communism. They are declaring war and are going to forcibly overthrow all countries. Okay, and that included the America, United States. They referred to it as America. Of course, they get rid of countries. They don't have any countries. The Americas is North and South America, Central America, all of that. But they obviously had their eye on the Big Apple, and not necessarily New York either, Big Apple, but United States. And they let the ruling classes tremble. Page 31 of the Communist Manifesto, they equate the bourgeois and conservatives. Okay, that's the middle class. That's the ruling class in most countries where you have a middle class, a different class. We're not supposed to have classes at all anywhere. It's supposed to be equal protection under law. That's, by the way, the Battle of Indiana. That's what that's about, equal protection under law. People have a right to do business with whoever they want to do business with, unless you're in a totalitarian society. Let the ruling classes tremble. Communism is terrorism. You understand that? You see that? Tremble at the communistic revolution, insurrection. Insurrection, revolutionary movement. Anytime you see movement, civil rights movement. Okay, that's communistic. Has nothing to do with human rights. It is the rights and the demands that they have for their buds. Okay, for their buds. Those are their special interests. That's who they use. They cause chaos between the classes, and they want to have people tremble. And they end up having everybody tremble if you're going to tremble, unless you're a leader, because a leader you're going to be taken care of. There's only a handful of them people, really. They have enough. They give enough. Throw some bones out to them people there who are collaborators, enough for them to get by, and then they take the rest of it. They talk about subsistence for the proletariat, and of course they want to drive the middle class down to a proletariat level to where everybody down in the bottom is equal getting subsistence. That's all they get. Forget your 401k and all that other stuff. Working men of all countries unite. Yeah, that's the communist way. Got this picture up on the screen here. Been reading a couple of stories. Have a couple of stories in my hand here about what's been going on. I want to talk about some people. I'm going to be talking about some journalists and broadcasters. What they write about. They're collaborators with the communists too, by the way. Section 6 of the guidelines of the Communist Party is a party press. Of course, it was written in 1921. And as I say, things have changed since 21. We've got technology and everything. The guidelines of the Communist Party haven't changed since 1921. But for instance, the press is now the media and Hollywood and wherever you could spread your propaganda from, which is Section 4 of the guidelines. This picture I have up here is Reuters, I guess, if you read it closer. And they took the picture. And I find it offensive myself because what it is a mocking of the American flag. I don't mind somebody having a gay, lesbian, transgender flag, whatever pride. I mean, freedom of press and freedom of religion too, I suppose. They're part of the communist movement, and, which I just got through saying was a religion, didn't I? Anyway, they got their flag. That part of it doesn't bother me, but they're mocking the U.S. flag. And I was saying United States Navy. Upside down flag. What does that represent? American flag upside down. The ensign, what they call the ensign in the Navy. Not the officer. There's ensign officers too, but it's the lowest officer, commissioned officer classification. But the ensign itself, it goes on to, it's the flag of the ship that's flying, normally from a mast when you're underway. And when you're docked, the flag is on the fantail, rear end of the ship. And you have an ensign on there as long as the ship is commissioned. For instance, the USS Constitution, which is a couple hundred years old, up in Boston, it's got an ensign. It's been commissioned for a couple hundred years, and it has an ensign. And that ensign is there whenever it needs to be there, whenever it's underway. For them, it's only a couple times a year, but other than that, while it's in port daylight, got the ensign up. And if you have the ensign, if you are disabled or in distress, in the old days where they didn't have communications other than the signalmen who doing their thing. I got some movies of them, for instance, I took when I was in the Navy. They still do their thing between ships, Morse code with flags. How they do it. It's very interesting. But upside down U.S. flag on a ship means they're in distress. They're mocking. They're mocking me. I find that offensive. Gay and lesbian upside down. They got more rights now than they've ever had, which is complete. Nobody was ever stopping anybody from being a homosexual, gay or lesbian. The individual person wanting to be any of those, they could always be that way, all the way back in time. There's some people didn't appreciate it. They may make fun at them, and they may have violence, which I don't condone. Somebody wants to be whatever way they want to be, that's fine, the individual. The problem we come at is when you have a group, and you have communists form up that group, and they battle others. I'm going to go to another picture here shortly, and I'm going to show you about violence from the gay community and the communist leadership. Let me grab that one here 1 second. Now, you see this. This is a demonstration, I guess, somewhere in Indiana there, probably in front of their, I don't know what's a state courthouse or whatever official building is. I assume that's what it is, down there in Indianapolis. And you'll see people demonstrate. There's a cameraman there. You see a police officer. Let me get the cursor over here. It's a police officer standing there. I bet he's thrilled to death about doing this. He'd rather be in a donut shop, probably. If I was him, I'd rather be there. But you see that guy up there right here. He's holding a flag. And you see that fist? That's almost like a Lenin salute there, isn't it? At first, I thought it was a Lenin salute. Probably. Same. Similar. I know at Ferguson, they had the Battle of Ferguson over there, Missouri. They had some of them people, I got pictures that I've shown it before, with the Lenin salute. You know what the Lenin salute, you've seen enough of Jesse Jackson with his salutes. Gaddafi used to do the same thing. Fellow travelers, I guess. Anyway, you see him, they got the flag up there, he's got a fist around that flagpole. There they go. Now we have another picture. And this is from a story. It's the same picture, different angle, I guess. Or usually they take pictures, they take more than one. Anyway, it's showing that flag. And the title of this article is What Makes Indiana's Religious Freedom Law Different? Blah, 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 blah. It's propaganda. And this is how you get the press who are collaborators with the communist party supremacy. Page 25, that's also where you find the party supremacy in the Communist Manifesto. I'll get it out here in a second. But you got Mr. Jarrett Epps from the Atlantic. This is a story from the Atlantic. And I read this. What a bunch of garbage. Brainwashing, 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 propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. And he tells a story, and it's a biased story. He doesn't tell the story on the other side at all. And I'm going to tell everybody something right now. My wife and I talking this morning, and we came across something. We were high school sweethearts. We graduated from Carl Sandburg High School in Orland Park, Illinois, suburb of Chicago, in 1963. I didn't get to the school until 1961. I'd been in the city, and we moved out to the suburbs. So a lot of mobility back around that time, around 1960, 61. My wife had already been out here. She had started school the fall semester of 1959 at Carl Sandburg. 4 years she was in the choir. She sang in the choir. I'm going to tell you something about religious freedom back in that day, in that period. And I've told you about it before, about my favorite teacher at Carl Sandburg High School, Ann O'Connor, who taught me all about communism. Back in the early days, the basics, 2 step forward, 1 step back. Yard by yard it's hard, inch by inch it's cinch. And here's where we go from that saying. My wife reminded me this morning that the choirs back then used to sing religious songs at the public school, a public high school. They had performances in the high school by the choir. And you know what song she told me that she remembered? And I got it, and I got the lyrics out, and I couldn't believe this. I was stunned, because I had forgot all about it. But she didn't. She started spouting the words off. She says, I still remember the words. From 1961, 62, into 63. That's a long time ago. We've had our 50th anniversary of leaving high school. And what song? A Negro Spiritual. An all-white suburban Chicago school in the public school singing a Negro Spiritual. Now that's America. Okay? And there was no civil rights movement at that time. Apparently we didn't need it, but somebody had to made that up so they could subvert the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Were you there? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Could you believe it? That was sung in a public high school, in a gymnasium, when they were having a concert, a choir concert, in a public school. Could you? Oh, wait a minute. If you had freedom to do that back then, public speech and religious freedom in the public, whoa, wait a minute. You can't do that anymore. Who's being discriminated against? Yeah, that's the dirty truth, isn't it? That's the dirty truth of who's being discriminated against. It's people of religion. Remember, they want to abolish religion, and they're doing it, aren't they? And my wife is living proof of that. She did that back then. She had the religious freedom back then to sing a religious hymn, a Lutheran hymn, which is a Negro spiritual, number 500, sang it in public, in a public school, in a public setting. Yeah, even back then we had Christmas, we had trees We call them Christmas trees, and they were in the town square. We had religious freedom then. But oh no, you see, the communists in 1965 started their insurrection. And that's what's happened. So we got Mr. Epps here in the media, propaganda. That's what we got a lot of with all the media. Because I don't hear anybody on my side. That's why I'm a war correspondent. I think I'm the only one in the United States who's saying he's a war correspondent for this class warfare, telling the people, telling anybody who listens. Now I want to switch a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. I want to talk. Sunday morning, I happened to flip, and I don't watch mainstream media hardly at all. Happened to be walking by a TV, or somebody happened to have it on, and we were watching some good show. And especially Sunday morning, you may be watching a religious show, or Sunday morning on CBS, which is halfway decent. It's not a news show, sort of, and you can watch that. Next thing you know, the show comes on, and hell, it's one of them Sunday morning shows, news things. Pure propaganda, all pro-communist. Yeah, they don't like me saying that, but that's true. It's pro-communist. Just like this Garrett Epps here. Just like the Garrett Epps. Pro-communist. It's Sunday morning. ABC with George Stephanopoulos. That man was part of the Clinton administration, wasn't he? Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Yeah, he was. He was on. And you're probably wondering why it demands of the Communist Party in Germany, and I'm talking about George Stephanopoulos. Well, I'm going to get to it right now. You see, he's talking about the Indiana stuff going on. And while I was listening, and I know even while I wasn't listening, I know they never bring it up. You see that demands of the Communist Party in Germany, written 21 and 29, between 21 and 29 of March 1848. Off to the corner up here is the poster it came from, or handout, brochure, whatever they call it back then. You see that proletarians of all countries unite, working men all unite. Yeah, and the demands they've got, this is 17. You hear people all the time talk about the 10 planks. The 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. That's not completely accurate. There are 10 planks on page 26, and I showed you that earlier, where they said they're going to abolish eternal truths and what have you. There's 10 planks there. There's three. There was the original 3 planks, which was in 1847 in the Engel writing the Communist Confession of Faith, where they say they're going to abolish religion also. And there's 3 planks there. Then on page 4950, get into that. So I've gotten into that in the past. I'll get into some more. There's another 12 planks. And here in this demand letter, there's another 17 planks. Some of them are the same, they're reworded, some of them are combinations, and they're different things, but there are a total of 42 in different places of itemized things. Number 13 here, what do you see? Number 13, complete separation of church and state. The clergy of all denominations shall only be paid by their own voluntary congregations. Everybody else is going to get paid by the state, by the way, because everything is going to be owned by the state. Okay. Now, that's right. So when you see the Battle of Indiana, this is what this is all about, separation of church and state. It's communism. It is communism. Mr. Epps didn't tell you that. And George Stephanopoulos did not tell you that, or will never tell you that. And there's a reason for that, because he's at least a communist collaborator or something. I'll go back to, I'll show you the flag there. Now, the George Stephanopoulos, he's on there, he's talking about the thing, and of course he's biased too. And he ain't telling you some stuff, but Mr. George Stephanopoulos has a very dark past. And I'm going to tell you about his dark past, along with the Democratic Party, the Clintons, Carville, the whole damn bunch of commies. I'm going to tell you about them in their dark past. George was part of the Clinton administration, wasn't he? And of course, Hillary, you know, she wrote the book, It Takes a Village. It's a communist village, of course. And totalitarian society. Now, Stephanopoulos was with them. She was a co-president with President Bill Clinton. In 1992, just prior, during the election cycle, there was Ruby Ridge out in Idaho. Yeah, there was Ruby Ridge. Federal agents went on the property of the Weavers, Ruby Ridge, Idaho. And before it was all over, Randy Weaver would be shot in the back. His one son be shot. I don't know if he was killed or not, the one son. But he was shot. He was the first one shot. And then there was Vicki Weaver. Vicki Weaver holding an infant child when she had part of her head blown off by a sniper from Hosky Rescue Team 3. Nobody from the federal government. Now, first of all, that should have been a local police matter. I brought this up before. Constitution of Pennsylvania, 1776, inherent right is the sole exclusive inherent right. Regulations and laws. Private police, or the state police, is in state hands, not the federal hands. And yet, out there in Idaho, what are they doing? They're out there. A federal sniper blows the head off of Vicki Weaver. Hosky Rescue Team 3. Remember that, because I'm going to bring it up again. Into 1993, Clinton's elected, takes the oath. Janet Reno's the Attorney General. George Stephanopoulos is a de facto, I should say, press secretary. D.D. Myers, and they got to have a woman up there, right? It'll be first looking good, right? She was a press secretary, sort of a name, only the real press secretary and the mouth political confidant to Bill Clinton was George Stephanopoulos and others, but George Stephanopoulos. And what happened in early 1993, just the start of his presidency? What do we have? Down in Waco, Texas. Talking about abolishing or all religions. They'll end up abolishing the Branch Davidians. All of them that were down there. Men, women, and children. Some of them children they believe were poisoned, gassed. CS gas, when it burns, produces a cyanide or a cyanide-like gas. And some of those kids, when the autopsies were done on them, were in a gassed position. And they suspect it. They can't prove it, but they suspect it. I don't doubt it, since that's facts that CS gas, when burned, will produce a cyanide-like gas, very toxic and lethal. There's 51-day siege down there. Janet Reno, I did a whole thing on Waco. Whole video. You can go find that, probably one of them way back when. I think I did that early 2013, if that's one of the 100s I have. But because it was all involving a false affidavit by an ATF agent by the name, I believe his name was Rodriguez. Federal agents again, the military. These people had already been investigated by the Texas Rangers and other authorities, law enforcement, governmental authorities. Charges made against them. Come to find out they weren't true, so no charges were ever made. Next thing you know, you got the ATF down there. And why were they there? Well, supposedly they had machine guns. Well, of course they had machine guns, because some of the people who were in the commune went to gun shows. There was at least one, I believe two, but at least one who had federal gun dealership licenses, and they used to sell at gun shows, and they had some machine guns. They were licensed to have them. They did have them, but there was some question about whether they were paying the taxes on these. Always comes down to taxes, don't they? That's how they get you with the IRS. But the IRS wasn't coming down there for the taxes. No, ATF. And they lied about it. They said drugs were involved. They were making drugs, which was not true, because they had been investigating on it. They had been making drugs in the previous time before David Koresh became the head of it. So there they were, military down there, helicopters, all that kind of stuff. You all saw it on CNN. Of course, you didn't hear all the whole story now, did you? No. They were evil people that messing around with their kids and all this kind of lies and propaganda. And there, Janet Reno and Bill Clinton talking. It's costing the government $1 million a day in that siege. For what? We can't have that. We got to end it. They ended it all right. 4 ATF agents were killed. And that left the number down to 78 Branch Davidians, men, women, and children, dead. They abolished that religion. You see, George Stephanopoulos, he was part of that too, that regime. He don't talk about that, does he? But his hands got blood on it. Him and the Clintons. You don't ever hear about that now. She's going to be running for president. She's going to be running for president. But here you have George. He's with ABC for all these years. That's the dirty little secret, don't you? They revolving door. You're talking about revolving doors for lobbying and whatever, but a revolving door going into the press so they can be spreading around their propaganda in the two Democratic parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. Yeah. Now here's the other lie. In the 90s, with the Clintons and the Stephanopoulos, there was the Persian Gulf War. The Persian Gulf War. We did not go in. We stopped at the border. We freed up Kuwait. We stopped at the border, and you remember there was General Schwarzkopf. They had a ceasefire agreement out there in the desert. Ceasefire agreement out there. Have you ever, I suggest something, I don't have a slide, but I believe, check the Persian Gulf. You can go out and Google it. Persian Gulf, ceasefire agreement, UN agreement. It's UN resolution. I believe it's 647 or 687, one or the other. Read it. You know, we've had, even to this day, people saying there's no weapons of mass destruction. Well, they didn't find them in the 90s when Clinton was president because they didn't go looking for them. And they never had any inspections, did they? that resulted in anything. They weren't allowed in. Saddam Hussein wouldn't allow them in, and they kept you know, once the Clintons got out of office and Bush gets into office, Bush Jr. gets into office, and they want to go after 9/11. They want to go into Iraq. Oh no, the Democrats say, man, there ain't no weapons of mass destruction. Bush is lying. Bush is lying. He's a war criminal. Bush is lying. Bush is lying. I'll challenge you to go read that resolution, United Nations resolution, because those people signed, the Iraqis, Saddam Hussein's boys, signed in the desert with Schwarzkopf there of what they had. And they had weapons of mass destruction. They said they agreed that they had it there. They had gassed their own peoples. But you don't hear that from many in the press, do you? No. You get the propaganda, and the propaganda. And this Battle of Indiana, that's what it all is too. And all the press, which side are they on? Let me pull down. I got my old chart here. Bring that back up here. Take a look. You see that line right down? That's a line in the sand, is what I call it anyway. Which side are they on? You know, Americans, they're on either one side or the other. As far as this chart goes. You're either in the free citizens class, that's the average citizen in America, or you're in with the communist criminal class, the privileged class, the masters. They're the masters on that side, and everybody else is a slave in America, because that's the communist system. That's the totalitarian system. That's the way it always is. It's not the way it's supposed to be in America, because we're special, aren't we? Yeah, we're special. Involuntary servitude, that's what is slavery we have in the United States. The first plank on page 49 of the Communist Manifesto talks about progressive taxes and forced loans. Our national debt is a forced loan. You won't hear this by any politicians or anybody in the press. You sure as hell won't hear it from George Stephanopoulos. Forced loans. Forced loans. All of us, our kids, our grandkids, probably future generations. Involuntary servitude, forced loans, national debt. That's the way they got it set up. Propaganda. Another chaos, another battle. That's the battle of the forced loans. We'll talk about that more in deep. Now, back to the Battle of Indiana. It's nothingness, okay? It's nothing but a story. It's nothing but a lie. It's nothing but a shell game. It's a confidence game. And they got you believing, waving them flags and the slogans and putting up the Lenin fist, that that's what the normalcy in America is, and it is not. Freedom of religion, we used to have freedom of religion. The real ones being discriminated against are Christians and Jews and other peaceful religions that is being abolished by the communists. And the way they're doing it is with the revolutionary movement and the insurrection. Beware of what the press says. Beware of what politicians say. They lie a lot. Or you have deception by silence. They're good at that too. Propaganda by silence. Now, that'd be enough for today, I think. And if you're not seeing me or listening to me, if you would, go to recapturefederalism.com, subscribe, keep up to date with what we got. All 100 videos are there if you want to go there. You don't want to sign up. It don't cost nothing right now anyway. And you just go ahead and look at them. Spread them out to your friends. Share them. They should be aware that they're slaves right now. And I'll be getting into the future. There's ways of solving all that problem, non-violently. But we all have to work together, all us in the free citizens class. We're being taken advantage of. But like I say, come over and subscribe. We can send you some information, what we're going to be doing, how we're going to be doing it, and we'll go from there. Until the next time, good day.